Hey everybody, Brian and Andy here from Bird Brain 66 talking about the 1975 Topps St. Louis Cardinal baseball card set. It's a 660 card set released that year from Topps. Great set, very cool. It's like the rainbow set, as you will see momentarily with all the cool colors and something that Brian and I like very much about this particular. Yeah, there's one. There's Bob Force right there. Great card, great colors. Gibson. So, Brian, obviously, what's your impressions about this set? I know you're showing those cards off.
So
Matt?
one of the things that's interesting to me is it kind of reminds me a little bit of the 1972 set, which we'll get into eventually down the road here. But that was the one that I just thought was like on like Technicolor, but it's the first set since then that uses multiple colors. Whether it was what I was showing earlier with the 4-sheet card, where it's blue and green, there's red and yellow, there's orange and red, there's all these different colors on the front of it. So it's a very cool set in terms of the colors and lots of neat little things to this set. I like towards the end of the set, or at least that's where I keep my cards. They did a tribute from 1970. 1953 to 1974 of all the MVPs. So there's 4 Cardinal MVP cards in there. There's a great one of Yaz and Cepeda from 67. There's Gibson in there. There's Torrey from 71, and there's Kenny Boyer from the 1964 team on there. So there's that, and then there's the cards where there's 4 players in one. It's the rookies. And in this particular 1975 set, it's just absolutely, there's Phil Garner and Kenny Reeds on that one. Kenny Reeds, listen to me, Keith Hernandez. I'm looking at the Ken Reeds card right next to me that I want to talk about next. But yeah, Hernandez is in there. But 75 back in the day when you were trying to collect whole sets was really a tough set to collect because there was so many rookies in there. But one of probably my top 5 sets in my collections in terms of just it's cool, it's different, it's odd. So what are some of your fun takeaways from the set, Andy?
A majority of them are the same things you mentioned in there. And obviously, like you said, there's a ton of rookies in this entire set, not just from the Cardinals, but there's also throughout baseball. And, so it's a great collection for a great card set for anybody to collect. For that reason alone, for whatever your team happens to be, unless it's a team that wasn't in existence then, as some people may find out, depending on their knowledge of the history of the game. But obviously, one of my very favorite cards of that particular year is the Gibson card, because that is his last card as a player for the Cardinals. Obviously, they've made many more of Gibson over the years, but his last player card is actually in this set. And also another great Hall of Famer, Hank Aaron, it was actually his last card as a player as well in this set. So that's another cool thing about this set. Ended the careers of 2 very prominent people within baseball, for that time period. And another thing about it is that's when we were kind of coming along and getting into the collecting, piece of baseball cards back in the day. It could have probably started with 73, 74 for us. Who knows? When it actually started, I can't remember back that far, but really cool collection of players on the Cardinals at that time, and it seems like the Cardinals were in a big transition phase during the '70s too. So there's a lot of turnover in players throughout the '70s. But this, like you said, great colors, great set, one of my favorite sets out there. Any other distinctions of the set that you really like?
Well, before I do that, I mean, you coined the phrase dirty caps, so I'm going to continue to talk about that. So don't mean to steal your thunder. That's definitely an Andy Teague, saying there. But I'm amazed at all the changes that was happening to the rotation back then. It seems like every single one of the pitchers outside of like Grabowski, Gibson, and John Denny, everybody else pretty much had the dirty caps. And Andy, to explain to everybody, so I'm not stealing your thunder, what you mean by dirty caps.
Well, if you hadn't heard what I said before about that, check out our 1981 Coke set video. But what that means is that somebody from Topps took an airbrush, or not an airbrush itself, but had to paint these photos with caps and collars on the uniforms to make them match the particular teams that they were moved to during that time frame, because they didn't have the photo technology, obviously, that they do today, where they could digitally enhance things and move things, at a much rapid rate, than they could back then. So, yeah, a lot of cards like that, and that's where I came up with the dirty cap, because they looked like they had some kind of foreign substance on all the ball caps where that was done.
Right. Yeah. And back in the day, we didn't know any better. And it's like now you look at it and it's like, wow. I mean, that was way before there was Photoshop. I know we've talked about that in a previous video that we've done. But I love that. I love your saying it's the dirty cap. But ever since you mentioned that way when we started doing our research before we started doing these podcasts, I've really become, I guess hypersensitive to really looking at some of the older sets, and it's like, wow. Again, somebody had to sit there and painstakingly, remove the Cincinnati Reds logo or the Phillies logo or whoever logo it is, and make that cap red, and then, do that. Sometimes it looks really good. There's one, I think it's Elia Sosa. I mean, his is just downright bad, or maybe it's Ken Rudolph, the catcher. One of them is just like, it looks like, maybe, I'm not knocking the technology back in the day, but it looks like a 3-year-old really went and painted it. It's not a very good job. But, one of the things that you mentioned, some of the favorite things that I like is the back of the card is green and red, and there's a trivia question on the back. But the trivia question doesn't necessarily, there's
the Rudolph card right there.
Yeah. Look at, is that the one where look at how sloppy that is. And at least in my eye, it is. And again, not knocking the guy or the gal who had to do that back in the day, because that was definitely difficult. But I love the cartoon character on the back of the cards, and I love the trivia questions. And one of the things that you pointed out is it's not necessarily a trivia question that's related to the Cardinals.
Correct. Yeah, and the one that I did find, actually, Lou Brock's is actually related to, something he did, which was the season before when he broke the National League stolen base record. And that was a big thing we'll talk about again, because that was Brock's base burglars. So that was a big thing in St. Louis at the time. So, but yeah, the great Lou Brock, on the back of his does have a mention about his record-breaking feat of in 1974.
Yeah, and I like the 2 highlight cards in that set of Brock and of Bob Gibson. That's pretty cool. One of the other things that you brought up in your research, and I'll let you, we talk about all the rookies in there, but what's so special about this card of Mr. Forsch?
Well, he's by himself, number one, and it's his rookie card. And if we just take a look at the rookie card, you see Forsch on his own, but you see Hernandez on the 4-player card. So your expectation would, Forsch would have probably wound up on the 4-player card, and Hernandez would have been by himself, for that particular time period. But, it didn't work out that way. But nonetheless, great card. It's one of my favorite Forsch cards, because, that's the start of his great career with the Cardinals. And, and he actually got a rookie card of his own, like many other players in the major leagues at that time.
Right. The other thing that we talked about prior to recording is that there are no high numbers in this set, because the tops kind of went away with that. But what I did find in my research was pretty interesting, that cards 1 through 132 are a little bit more scarce than the rest of the set. There's really no reason given for that. It's just that the quantity of cards 1 through 132, there just isn't as many. But I haven't really seen anything in terms of there being any price differences in that. It was just noted that, that there's that 1 through 132 is a little bit smaller run than the rest of the set. Another thing that we haven't talked about is, that 75 set is so cool. And part of the reason why you and I like it so much is the mini set that's about 20% smaller than the regular set. Anything in your research that you found in terms of if this was a successful run or how it got started? Do you remember any of that?
It was just a test run by Topps, if I remember correctly, and I think it was Michigan where it was actually run at, and it was not actually very successful, so they did not decide to move forward with it after that year. But interesting thing is they did a full, complete, mock-up set of the regular size set in the mini.
Right.
So we may take a look at that maybe in the future, not for very long, because we're obviously we'd be reviewing the same cars essentially, except they're significantly smaller. But the color scheme is really cool, and it's just kind of reminds you of that time period, as well. So it's a good job by Topps, and that with this particular set, it just if you compare it to 74, 76, which bookend this particular set. So
Yeah, and probably the last thing that
there's the 1974 Rookie of the Year right there.
Yep, there you go. I also like the block letters at the top of the card that says Cardinals with the black shadow. I just always have liked that touch with the card. But as we get ready to wrap up this program, one last thing about the minis, as you mentioned it, yeah, they were sold mostly in the Michigan area and as well as on the West Coast. That was the other research that I found pretty interesting. But anyway, I think I've said just about everything I can say about this set. Is there anything else, Andy, that you want to add before we get ready to close?
No, I do want to show the majestic Simba also, because we didn't talk about
the hair.
Great card, with the flowing mane going on there. So that's a great card by Ted. Loved him as a player for the Cardinals too. So didn't want to leave him out. Many others as well. Want to miss them all. And it's also a significant hit to our wallet that particular year, because Topps raised the price of the pack from 10 cents to 15 cents per pack. So in today's terms, who knows what that would be, but that nonetheless is about a penny a card regardless back in the day. So it's pretty cool. So for a kid on a budget or allowance, it's pretty easy to obtain cards and trade them with their buddies and things of that nature.
So one final thing, I know we said we're wrapping up, so I wanted to say, rest in peace to a great Cardinal, the Mr. Zamboni, Kenny Reitz. And I do get asked this question all the time about, hey, when, I don't know if you can see this or not, but on this particular card, I've had it for probably, 45, almost 50 years in my collection. And it's got the original bubblegum stain on it. And people ask me, well, why don't you get rid of that card and replace it with something that's in more pristine shape? And as you and I have talked about lots of times, I've got too many memories associated with that card and getting it and having that piece of gum sticking to the back of it. So that stain means just as much to me as it does than having a card that's in pristine shape. So
yeah, and you bring up a good point, because you may run across a card that you had a ding corner on or something, some kind of flaw on it, but you don't know you don't remember what kind of trade back in the day you may have to make to get that card. So you got in your collection and it's just remained there, and then we just do it for fun. So it's not about trying to replace anything to be mint or anything like that. It's just about enjoying the card, because they all tell a story, a particular player, a particular team, a particular time, that we enjoyed as kids. So that's what we love about it.
Yep, definitely. And I'm going to close here in just a sec, but on our next show, we got to write it down in our notes. You got to tell the great bazooka gum story. So we got to remember to do that for the next one. And that's why I brought up the card stain. So on that note, I'm Brian Bretsch. He's Andy Teague. We are Bird Brains 66. You can find us on Twitter at BirdBrain66. You can find us on Facebook, BirdBrain66. And this is another one of our video podcasts. And Andy, where can you find our video podcast?
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and we're going to branch out here real soon if people start watching us and get more into it. So, and just see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.